to 79 units in 8 years in 3 simple steps so somebody else can do it in half the time. Ready, go.
I don't know if there's 3 simple steps to be able to do that. The biggest thing is just doing the first one, right? I mean, that was the hardest part. So like when we first started and we moved here, we did that first project. Like that was by far the hardest, most stressful one. But getting that one done and then just focusing on the next one, right? And then the next one. And there's like at some point there's some acceleration there because you get better and you get better at it and you get more resources and you're able, instead of one, do 2 at a time or 3 at a time or a small multifamily or something like that. So for me, there was definitely some acceleration there with a little bit of experience. But I think the most important thing is just doing the first one, realizing that real estate investing, there's types of real estate businesses that can make good income quickly, but long-term real estate investing through rentals is not one of them. So being patient, realizing it's not a get-rich-quick thing, and just getting that first one done and then focusing on the next one moving forward.
We're talking like Grant Cardone talks a lot about, if you're still in your hometown, hanging out with loser friends, not going anywhere, that you should just pick up and like move somewhere.
So I don't think I had loser friends, right? But even if not, just moving out of the area to somewhere, I think it's a good, especially for young men, just a good thing to do. Getting away from where you're comfortable and your family and your friends and stuff like that, starting new, where you're kind of forced to like make things happen. There's no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't make that move. Not that I wasn't capable of doing it where I was at, and I probably should have then, but it really took me leaving and going all in on getting started to kind of catapult to where I'm at today. Like I think that move was super valuable. The first year, it was probably only like 2, maybe 3 units. And then it was a couple more the next year and a couple more the next year. And like I said, it wasn't until I'd say when I got to that like 8 to 10 unit mark, I bought like a package of 3 and then a 4-plex. And so like, then they started getting a little bit bigger. And so that's when, and then again, a couple years later, it was like a 12 unit and build a couple houses. And so it would be cool to go back and look and like really break it down per year, but it was slow at first and then it slowly started to pick up. Definitely not the way we do it now, and not the way that I would recommend for everybody, but I actually paid cash. And so the first property we bought sight unseen from California, and it was a really crappy, really rundown foreclosure. I think it was a foreclosure in the hood. And so it was $28,000 in cash. And I had enough cash saved up from the sale of a previous house, plus like basically sold everything I could before we moved, that I was able, between the rest of the cash that I had saved up and maxing out credit cards, I was able to pay cash for the purchase and the refi. So for the purchase and the rehab. When I was finished with that first house, it was owned free and clear. And then I bought the next house, which was a really, really, really super rundown house, but in a very nice part of West Little Rock that we moved into. We rented that first house out. So for the first couple months that it was a rental, it was owned free and clear. And so I had to make the decision to refinance it and pull money out of it.
My goal is to have 10 units in X amount of years. Like what does that look like? So it's get number 1, and then once you get number 1, like what's step 2?
So the biggest thing, especially when I'm working with new real estate investors who are interested in getting started investing in real estate, I just tell them to start with like the end in mind. And so some people love their careers and they have zero interest in quitting. They just want to be able to supplement their retirement someday. And then other people want to like be able to quit as soon as possible. So it depends on your like personal goals. But I always tell people, try to figure out like how much extra income would you want, say in 30 years, if the properties were paid off free and clear and you're just collecting that cash amount for each unit, like how much total yearly extra income would you want? And then figure out how many rental properties that would take. So it could be 2, or it could be 5, or it could be 10, or it could be 100. Like it's different for everybody, but say it's 10, try to get to that 10 as quickly as possible. So if you decide that I in 30 years, if I had 10 rental properties paid off free and clear, that'd be substantial for me and I'd be happy with that. Like try to buy the 10 as quickly as possible. So say it takes you, 2 to 10 years to buy those 10, then you can kind of stop, reevaluate, see if you want to continue, if you're enjoying this, you want to continue to buy more, or if you just want to get those paid off as quickly as possible so you can get to that 10 rental properties paid off free and clear. I always tell them take the like extra cash from all 10 of them, so the extra cash flow from all 10 of them, and then just focus on paying the first one off. And then same thing, focus on paying the second one off, focus on paying the third one off till you get them all paid off. Not everybody wants to have hundreds of units. Like some people it's just 3. If I had 3 nice rental properties paid off in 30 years, that would be pay my medical expenses and, you know, provide me with a new car every couple of years. Just get to that 3 as quickly as possible and then decide if you want to pay them off. Or what could happen, what happened with me for sure, is I thought I wanted 10, and then I got to 10, and I realized I wanted to move that goalpost and try to get to 25, and then 50, and now I'm working towards 100. And so that's also okay. But the biggest thing is getting to that first goal that you have, or the first hurdle, as quickly as possible.
I think a lot of people think, you know, they'll get each property is going to cash flow $1,000 a month. They'll get 10, and they'll have $10,000, you know, cash flow a month.
Yeah, bro, not at these interest rates. That ain't gonna happen. Honestly, dude, when I first started doing this and the rates were like 4.5%, like that was very achievable. Not today. It ain't gonna happen today. You're lucky if they're cash flow positive. I think you're seeing on rental properties, if you want a decent, like a safe amount of cash flow, you're having to put down more cash on the front end. So just 15 or 20% is not going to cut it. You got to put a little bit extra cash down to get a safe amount of cash flow. Again, I think if you're investing long term, I still think it makes sense to continue to buy now if you can. And then I'm also seeing other people. We've got a client right now that we helped her. She unfortunately got talked into buying some really crappy rental properties in a really crappy part of town that we've helped her since sell. But she's probably going to buy a property from us, and she's just going to pay cash. And so, like, she'll own the property free and clear. And so, once she pays property management, taxes, and insurance, it's all cash flow. Now, again, there's a bunch of ways of looking at that. Like, it may not be the best use, and some people think you should definitely have leverage, which I would agree on in my situation. But there's other people who just don't want the stress of it, or they don't like debt or whatever, and for her it makes sense for her to pay that property off of cash, have it free and clear. And so say she's collecting $1,600 a month in rent, she will have $1,000 a month in cash flow because she won't have that debt on there. I personally think you should always have cash flow. If you like, I think it's important that it cash flows, and so I don't want people to mistake that, but it obviously depends on where you're investing and what you're investing in, but specifically where we're at, like, it needs to cash flow a little bit so that you never get yourself in a tight spot, even if that means you have to put more cash down to purchase it. So like I said, it may not, at 20% down or 15% down, it may not cash flow at all. I think you should put more money down on the purchase so that it cash flows at least a little bit. If that cash flow is at least there, but it's tight, I look at it almost like a savings account. So if I say I've got to put $30,000 down to buy that rental property, I look at it like putting that money in a savings account, where in a way, I look at it like the tenant's going to contribute to that savings account for me because they're paying down the property over time. So theoretically, if I own the property and I've got a 30-year loan on it, over the course of 30 years, I'm going to allow the tenants to pay off the property, and now it's worth, say, $250,000, right? Paid off free and clear. It's like the tenant, in a way, was depositing into that savings account for me. I think it's more complicated than that. You're going to have turnovers, you're going to have to repair stuff along the way, it's going to cost money along the way, but theoretically, in a perfect world, you buy the house, in 30 years it's paid off, buy the tenants. Now you got that savings account that went from $30,000 to $250,000 to $300,000. Money market accounts, if people have cash that they're sitting on right now, instead of just having it like in a checking account or a savings account, like a lot of times the banks will do a money market account, which is paying higher interest, and so that's not a bad idea. You can also use that as collateral and borrow money against that. That's a little bit more complex, but can get you kind of a loan with a little bit lower net interest if you wanted to not tie up all that cash. But again, I still think I think real estate, even though it's harder now than it has been in the recent years because the rates are a little bit higher, I still think long term, if you're looking at investing over the course of 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I think it makes sense every time, especially if we continue to see inflation, which I think we will. The asset prices and the housing prices and all that stuff are going to continue to rise. You look at what it cost. You know, my grandma bought a house, I don't even know, years and years and years ago in Martinez, California, for like $12,000 or $20,000 or something like that. 5 or 6 years ago, after she'd passed, and my dad and uncle went to sell it. I mean, it sold for over $600,000. It's not because the house changed at all. It was literally the same exact house that they lightly remodeled. It's just that inflation over time drove the price up a lot in that case. Now, Little Rock doesn't have those swings like that, but still, a house in Little Rock, 50, 60 years ago was probably $5,000 to $20,000. Now they're, well over 100,000 or more. Don't get bogged down. It can be very very overwhelming or very, very intimidating when you're like, I want to invest in real estate. I should do it. I always tell people there's literally like a million ways to be successful in real estate or real estate investing. Like, you just got to pick one. And what I would say is, like, for me, like, it used to be that feeling, but I think, I call it the Holy Spirit. So it's like, you probably know which one you should be going into. But if not, just pick the one that makes the most sense to you, or the one that you understand the best, and just start there. It's probably going to change over time. Like, when I first started, I was going to buy these super cheap houses in the ghetto and fix them up and rent them, and like, that changed really quickly. And then I started doing something else, and I started doing something a little bit different, and it was small multifamily. And so I've bounced around a bunch, but the biggest thing is just doing that first deal, picking something, doing that first deal and getting started, and then working on that next one, and realizing that it's going to change a bunch as you go, and that's totally okay. I was on that podcast, and he asked about, like, what's something, like, a hard lesson you've learned or what, and I kind of laughed, because it's like, it's kind of hard to narrow that down, because there's been so many expensive lessons along the way, right? But the biggest one, like, what I boil probably the worst ones down to being relatable is the rehab budgets. Like, don't underestimate the rehab budgets. Like, you can want a rehab to be $30,000, but if it's realistically going to cost $40,000 or $50,000, budget for that $40,000 or $50,000. You can try to save the money by doing some of it yourself, or trying to buy cheaper materials or whatever, but just be realistic about it. What I've found over and over again the hard way is the rehabs cost what they cost, and just be realistic about it, and don't hope you can do it cheaper, because most of the time you can't. It's gonna cost what market costs are for that type of stuff. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions about getting started in real estate, whether it's your first deal or you're a little bit farther along, drop in the comments, or shoot me a message. And again, please like and follow or subscribe.